The quiet suburb of North Epping, Sydney, Australia was known for its peaceful streets and tight-knit community. But on a cold July morning in 2009, that peace was shattered. The local news shop run by the Lynn family stayed closed, a simple handwritten sign reading, "Closed due to family circumstances." What seemed like a small disruption was only the beginning. Behind closed doors, a nightmare had unfolded. 5 members of the Lynn family, Min Lynn, his wife Yoon, their sons Henry and Terry, and Yoon's sister Irene were brutally murdered in their own home. It was a crime so shocking, it shook the entire community and captured national attention. This is the Lynn family murder. July 18th, 2009, a cold, quiet dawn settled over North Epping, a leafy Sydney suburb known for its safe streets where neighbors left doors unlocked and kids rode bikes freely. But that morning, the peaceful bubble was about to burst. Min Lin, a proud 45-year-old father and the hardworking owner of the local news agency, had built a stable life alongside his wife Yoon, 43. Yoon balanced long hours in the shop with caring for their 2 sons, Henry, just 12, and Terry, who was only 9. Sharing their home too was Yoon's younger sister, 39-year-old Irene Lynn, who helped raise the boys like they were her own. 5 lives bound by family and love, all under one roof. But by mid-morning, that roof would become a scene of horror. When the Lynn family's news agency didn't open as usual that Saturday, it raised alarm bells. People started asking, where was the morning paper? Min was always punctual. Concerned, Min's sister Kathy and her husband Robert Chie, who lived just minutes away, decided to check in. Around 9 a.m., they walked to the Lynn house. The front door was unlocked. Inside, everything seemed still, oddly normal. But that calm quickly turned dark as Kathy climbed the stairs to the bedrooms. She opened the door and froze. Blood was everywhere, like it spilled and splattered all over the walls, soaked right into the bedding, turning that quiet family home into something unrecognizable. The first to be found were Yoon, Harry, Terry, and Irene, Yoon's sister. Each one of them had been bludgeoned while they slept, hit over and over with something brutal, leaving almost nothing left that you can even identify. And then finally Kathy found Min. His body was tucked away beneath a blanket beside his wife's. The emergency call was made, and just like that, the peaceful North Epping Street had turned into the site of a nightmare. 5 members of one family wiped out overnight. Forensic experts later described the scene as an absolute nightmare. This wasn't a quick, careless attack. It was calculated and incredibly violent. All 5 victims showed wounds from a relentless, blunt weapon, something like a hammer. It showed that 4 of them had signs of asphyxia, so they may have been restrained or smothered before the fatal blows landed. Now, the children's rooms were absolutely heartbreaking. The evidence suggested Henry and little Terry actually woke up during the attack. They confronted their attacker and fought back, desperately trying to survive. But of course, against that kind of brutal assault, there was no escaping. Their blood was scattered everywhere, on the walls, ceilings, blankets, carpets, and what used to be a home filled with laughter had turned into a slaughterhouse. To the investigators, it was clear this was no random burglary that went sideways. Whoever came into that house had one thing in mind: to destroy the Lynns. But in the middle of that horrific carnage, inside the Lynn house, only one family member was missing. 15-year-old Brenda Lynn, the only daughter of Min and Yoon, was away on a school exchange trip in New Caledonia. She was thousands of kilometers from Sydney, focused on learning French, completely unaware of the nightmare playing out just back home. And she found out about her family being murdered, not from a phone call from a family member or the police. Instead, it was a simple Facebook notification, delivering the most devastating news possible. Her parents, her brothers, her aunt were all gone. In a single instant, Brenda became the sole survivor of the Lynn family. From the very start, the investigation left detectives scratching their heads. The Lynn family home showed no signs of forced entry, no smashed windows, no broken locks, and nothing stolen. Whoever came that night wasn't there to rob them. They came to kill. And things got even darker. The house had been plunged into total darkness before the attack. Someone switched off the circuit breaker, turning a family sanctuary into a terrifying hunting ground. This wasn't a random act of violence. It was planned, calculated, and deeply personal. Blood told much of the story next. Investigators found dozens of bloody shoe prints all over the bedrooms and hallway. The prints matched a man's sneaker around US size 8.5 to 10.5. Even though 5 people were murdered, it looked like just one attacker had moved through the house, taking each life one by one. But who would hate a whole family so much they wanted them completely wiped out? Police soon turned their suspicion very close to home, onto Robert Xie. He was Min Lin's brother-in-law, married to Kathy, the sister who had found the bodies that fateful morning. On the surface, Robert seemed like a supportive family member, but behind the scenes, investigators started to uncover cracks beneath that calm exterior. Robert had once been an ENT doctor back in China, but when he moved to Australia, his ambitions began to crumble. A restaurant he tried to open in Melbourne failed. Job opportunities slipped away. Meanwhile, Min Lin's family business thrived, and people started talking about Robert's growing bitterness. The financial stakes were significant. The Lynn family's assets included their $1.2 million North Epping home, a $300,000 unit in Maryland's, and the news agency valued at $500,000. After the murders, Robert Xie attempted to gain control of the family business, asking to take over the news agency operations, which further raised suspicions about his motives. There were suspicions, but the lack of evidence prevented the police from pointing their fingers at this guy. Only months after the murders, police made a crucial move. Covert cameras caught Robert at his own home taking a box of A6 sneakers, size 9.5, and destroying it. And that shoe size matched the bloody footprints found all over the Lynn family's home. And just when it looked like the investigation was stuck in a dead end, this small, desperate act opened the door to a breakthrough. In May 2010, the police executed a search warrant at the North Epping home of Robert and his wife Kathy. In the unassuming garage, on a patch of concrete, they found what looked at first like just a faint, dried stain. And this stain, called Stain 91, would become the centerpiece of the prosecution's case. Using sophisticated computer technology, prosecutors argued that this stain contained DNA from at least 4 victims. This was the breakthrough the authorities had been desperately waiting for. On May 5th, 2011, Robert Xie was quietly arrested at his home, ending nearly 2 years of painstaking investigation into the brutal killing of his own extended family. But if the police thought justice would come easy, they were wrong, because the blood found was just a small and complex sample. There were long scientific debates, expert witnesses, and cross-examinations over whether it was reliable. The evidence sparked intense legal debate. The stain was located 300 meters from the murder scene, and experts could never establish when or how it was deposited. The defense argued the family's regular use of the garage for activities like badminton provided innocent explanations for a DNA presence. Critics pointed out that even if the DNA was deposited after the murders, Xie and his wife discovered the bodies. It could simply be transferred from that discovery, making it irrelevant evidence. Moreover, Xie maintained a strong alibi. His wife testified under oath that after he turned off his computer at 2 a.m., he went to bed and never left without her noticing. The prosecution struggled to disprove this timeline, and that slowed the trial down enormously. And amid all this, Robert Xie denied everything. He pleaded not guilty to all 5 murders, dragging the case into one of Australia's most grueling and drawn-out legal battles. The first trial, scheduled for September 2013, collapsed before it began. This was largely because of legal disputes over admissibility of evidence and issues around ensuring Xie could get a fair trial. And during Robert Xie's custody, while he was awaiting trial, one of the most extraordinary twists came not from the courtroom, but from inside the prison walls. A man known only as Witness A stepped forward, a fellow inmate who claimed Robert Xie had spoken with chilling candor behind bars. According to his testimony, Xie boasted that he had purchased the murder weapon, a hammer from a cheap $2 store, deliberately choosing a shop he believed had only fake CCTV cameras. He went even further, telling the inmate he had devised a sinister Plan B, a backup scheme to plant someone else's DNA at the scene, creating a false trail to mislead investigators. Xie even hinted that the box the hammer once came in could still be found, hidden away if police searched carefully enough. The prosecution seized on this account, but the defense was ready to fight back. Prison informants are often controversial. They sometimes have motives like lighter sentences, money, or privileges. So the defense attacked his credibility hard, saying he had reasons to lie. Robert's lead counsel, Graham Turnbull SC, also argued that Xie, at just 170 centimeters tall and weighing only 60 kilograms, could not possibly have carried out such a sustained, frenzied killing spree alone. One man, he suggested, could not bludgeon 5 people to death in calculated silence without help. Turnbull cast doubt on the DNA results, accused police of misconduct, and hammered at the jury with a simple question. Had the prosecution really proven guilt beyond reasonable doubt? Justice would not come quickly. The second trial, set for 2014, collapsed when the presiding judge fell gravely ill. A third trial began in early 2015, but by December, after 11 days of deliberations, the jury could not reach a verdict. Once again, the case ended without resolution. Even more shocking, during this period, Robert Xie was granted bail, living freely in the very community haunted by his alleged crime. And for Brenda Lynn, the teenager who had just lost everything, and for the public, it felt like a slap in the face to justice. It wasn't until June 2016, during what was now the fourth trial, that the truth would finally be decided. A new jury was brought in, and once again the same arguments echoed through the courtroom. Jealousy, resentment, the forensic evidence, and the whispered obsessions that had followed Robert Xie for years. But this time, the jury was allowed to reach a majority verdict, and on January 12, 2017, 7.5 years after the massacre, the verdict was finally read out. Robert Xie was guilty of murdering 5 members of the Lynn family. Robert Xie was sentenced to 5 consecutive life sentences without parole. In 2021, his final appeal was dismissed. The legal chapter was closed. Justice, at least in the courts, was delivered. But justice could not erase the losses that stretched far beyond the blood-soaked walls of the Lynn family home. As investigators kept digging, they uncovered something even darker, something that had been hidden behind closed doors for years. In court, the prosecution argued that Robert Xie's motive was twofold: jealousy of his brother-in-law Min Lin's financial success and reputation, and far darker, an obsessive, inappropriate fixation on his teenage niece, Brenda. Robert Xie's cruelty hadn't started with the murders. Long before that night, he had been sexually abusing the one person who should have been safest with him, his own niece, Brenda. What began as unwanted touching turned into years of horrific exploitation, carried out in silence. And when Brenda lost her entire family on July 18, 2009, she wasn't freed from him. She was stuck with him, 15 years old, grieving with nowhere else to go. She moved in with Robert and his wife, Kathy. She thought she'd find comfort and protection. Instead, the nightmare only got worse. Behind closed doors, Brenda endured repeated sexual assaults at the hands of the same man who had slaughtered her parents, her brothers, her aunt. In a rare and courageous interview, Brenda later spoke publicly about her abuse. With quiet strength, she admitted, "I was very insecure. I didn't know what I was doing. He knew that. He read it very well." Her testimony revealed something investigators and even the public had overlooked. While the courtroom focused on DNA, shoe prints, and the murder weapon, the real engine of violence ran much deeper. At the heart of it was Robert Shea's sick obsession with his niece, a twisted desire that the court would later recognize as a driving force behind the murders. Even after the final verdict, for Brenda, justice could never bring back what she had lost. Instead, she turned her devastation into something extraordinary. Out of betrayal and silence, she created voice and community. In 2021, she co-founded the Survivor Hub, a grassroots network of safe spaces devoted to victims of sexual abuse and families torn apart by homicide. From a teenager orphaned in one of Australia's darkest crimes, Brenda became a leader, an advocate, and a source of strength for other victims. 12 Survivor Hub meetup spaces now operate across New South Wales and Victoria, supporting over 1,000 survivors. And Brenda volunteers tirelessly, 30, sometimes 40 hours a week, building communities, moderating networks, leading peer groups, and ensuring no one is left alone in their suffering. Alongside this, she pursues a PhD in criminology and youth justice, shaping reforms born from her lived pain and unwavering empathy. "I wanted to create the place I wish had existed when I first needed help," Brenda once said. In those words lies both her grief and her gift, proof that even from the darkest horrors, something life-giving can emerge. The Lynn family story will always be marked by violence, jealousy, and obsession, but it will also be remembered for Brenda Lynn's refusal to be silenced. She is the living proof of resilience, the strength pulled from ashes, and the reminder that even in the deepest shadows, hope can survive. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.